My great pleasure and honor to be here with Rabbi Haim Ovadia, a great posek, halachic thinker, and leading Sephardic U, which you should be sure to check out, where you can engage in a lot of learning and classes from distance, a lot of writings, a lot of podcasts and recordings. So thank you for taking this time.
Thank you.
So today we see a lot of in Klal Yisrael, the Jewish community, many pulling halacha to the far right, and many who have just abandoned it over the last hundreds of years since the Haskalah Enlightenment. And you've talked about modernizing halacha.
Yes.
What do you mean by that, modernizing halacha?
I think that the most important thing is making halacha relevant to thinking people in the 21st century and beyond. Not only the youth, even people my age, the older generation, 50 and over, are more knowledgeable, more in touch with the world. Communication makes everything accessible, and they could Google and ask and question everything. And they need to feel that Judaism and observance gives them something which is compatible with the modern world, with its knowledge and with its challenges.
So what are some of the big halachic problems we see today that need to be addressed and modernized?
I think that the problem of accessibility is one. Like kosher food is accessible only in certain places, only under certain prices. The other problem is that of minority groups who are being pushed aside. The LGBT community, in some cases, people who want to convert to Judaism. Women are still a sort of minority group within Orthodoxy, and Jewish education also is a big problem. The price, the availability. So we need to have a comprehensive approach to understand that every facet of halacha is connected and attached to all facets of Jewish life.
Yeah.
So that's how we have to address it.
So what would be some of the principles or rules that would guide how we think about modernizing halacha today?
I think that the academic approach alongside the comprehensive view are important. The academic approach, I mean the analysis in a very thorough way of all aspects of the halacha, going back to the original source, asking ourselves, what is the seat in life? What were the conditions back then? Has anything changed? For example, if you talk about organ donations or autopsies, medical science 1,500 years ago and today, what has changed? It has changed tremendously. When we talk about carrying on Shabbat, the cities of 2,000 years ago and the cities today, are they the same? And so on. So we have to ask these questions, and also we have to factor in all elements. We cannot speak about meta halacha as if there are some aspects that are outside halacha. Everything is part of halacha. How a person feels, how it's going to affect his or her marital harmony, how it's going to affect the children, emotional strife, etc. All these things are part of halacha, and that's how we have to access it.
So many feel very afraid. They feel like unless there's a Rav Moshe Feinstein or Rav Ovadia Yosef or the Orthodox Union, the OU says it, that we can't go in a certain direction. So what's your view of that?
No, I think that the relying too much, the reliance on precedents has paralyzed the Jewish community in a way. In the Sephardic world, that only happened in the 20th century because they were not affected by the Enlightenment, by the Haskalah, so they kept being innovative. In the Ashkenazi world, it happened around the 17th century, where everything had to have a precedent. If you dig deep enough, you realize that a lot of things happened without precedent. People had the courage to rule, the courage to be innovative. And without changing too much, you have to, one step at a time, find the places where change is needed. And if there's no precedent, you create it.
Do you think that halacha can be and should be relevant for all of Klal Yisrael, for all the Jewish people? Meaning many say they're within the halacha community that, okay, the problem is not the product, it's the marketing. We just need to do outreach and bring people into the model that's working.
Yes.
Right? But do you think that actually halacha could be modernized in a way where it could be relevant to the broader Jewish people? And what would it take to get there ultimately?
That's a good question. I think that we have created this kind of a myth that only the few select, the few elite people could observe the Halacha in its totality. And you would want to ask the question, is this really what God wanted? Maybe it has to be relevant to everyone. Maybe we have to scale back to the basics, to what the Torah demanded, to make it accessible to everyone. And I think also that's from observation and experience. I see that people who manage to connect to a halachic lifestyle in a way that brings them joy, their life changes, but in a positive way for everyone, not only for them, for those around them as well. And once you learn to recognize the value, the innate value in observing halacha, then it could be beneficial for all.
Right.
But then it cannot be limiting in the way that it is today. So it's a fine balance, but it's possible.
Right. There's this very limiting model like you see a lot that's very much like sacrifice who you are, sacrifice your values, sacrifice for God.
Right.
As opposed to a model that says this can broaden you, this can expand you. Use an important word of joy. This can bring you simcha. Right, in a sense. So that's a big shift, to move from a model of pachad, do this out of fear, do this out of conformity, to saying like, how can this add joy?
Right. And I think that is the probably the greatest fear of Orthodox leaders today, because in the past, since the destruction of the temple, we always had enemies. When you have enemies, it's easy to teach people to stay together and to cling to tradition, because that's the only way, that's the only thing that keeps us from our enemies. That's why you see that among Orthodox circles, it is more common to wave the flag of anti-Semitism. Everybody hates us. Everybody wants to destroy us, because if you don't have that, people will not be prompted to keep halacha. Right. We have to find a marketing tool that says keep halacha because it's fun and because it's enjoyable and because it makes you a better person, and not because, as you said, because of fear of punishment or because of millions of people died for it. Yeah. Because this young generation might tell you, okay, maybe they were wrong. Maybe I don't want to die for it. Right. Give me the positive element in what you're doing and not the negative.
The biggest challenge to my faith emerged in my consciousness a few years ago when I started to think about, are the Jewish people changing the world? And I started to look at the list of people the last few hundred years who were Jews who changed broader society. And I said, oh my goodness, how many of these people were Orthodox? How many of these people were observant? And those who were contributing in the arts and in the sciences, even in the more trivial things like Hollywood, but who was really contributing to change society? And I said, oh my goodness, either halacha is wrong, which is not the conclusion I come to, or we've allowed it to evolve into something that is more of a weight down, a cage, than wings to fly, right? That in my dream, Torah gives us the wings to fly, so that Klal Yisrael can be on the front lines of being an Or L'Goyim into the world. And so I wonder, do you believe the halacha could do that eventually? The halacha could not just be something that keeps Jews together, keeps Judaism alive, but actually is something that enables us to make a difference in the world.
So on one hand, I agree with you that really we're missing that. Where are the Orthodox Jews who won the Nobel Prizes, who were world leaders and all that? On the other hand, I think that when we look at the full history, those Jews who made such changes in the world were carried on the shoulders of thousands of generations who invested in learning and promoting the ideas of intelligence, of innovation, and commitment to society. But we still need to change it. I think that this is a fault in the educational system, where we want to keep our children in their safety zone, in their comfort zone. Go be a lawyer in a certain practice. Be a doctor, in something that is safe and comfortable. Right. We don't push them to be researchers, to break new grounds, new frontiers, to be entrepreneurs. Not even into professional sports. That's not for a Jew. Why not? Push them to be whatever they can be. Let them find what they want to be, and when they do it, they will flourish in their own way, and it will be amazing to see an Orthodox or observant, committed Jew in the government, in science, in politics, in the army. Why not? That would be Kiddush Hashem.
It's beautiful. I saw in the Mayam Loez recently, the Turkish thinker, that the first mitzvah in the Torah, according to Sefer Chinuch and the Rambam, Peru Revu, that you fulfill Peru Revu through creativity. That halachta bedrachav, when we emulate God by being creative, that's a religious act. Yes. When we are creative in science or in other forms of research and adding to society, that is emulating God. And that is what it means to be religious, is to contribute our creative energies into the world.
Sure.
So let me ask you, many today say there's Sephardic line of Halacha, and there's Ashkenazic line of Halacha. And the Sephardic shouldn't listen to what the Ashkenazic do, and the Ashkenazic shouldn't listen to the Sephardic do. They're two different cultures, and have to keep alive the purity of those heritages. What's your view on that?
Okay, so personally, I am very much steeped in the Sephardic culture, but I also grew up, always within the Ashkenazi culture. I'm in both worlds, and I think there are certain things that people want to keep because it's your language, it's your heritage, it's your narrative, etc. But in terms of halacha and living together, there should be no boundaries. Where in the past there were customs that were particular to a location because people were dispersed and there was no communication. Today we live in a global village. So a halacha that works for a Sephardi should work as well for an Ashkenazi. I could learn Arabic and Ladino and Yiddish and find the beauty in each one of them. I might want to keep some of my specific characteristics as for myself as an Iraqi Jew or someone who's, my wife is Moroccan, Tunisian. So those elements are part of my culture. But we also have to connect on the broader concept of being Jews. So if I say that legumes are kosher on Pesach, should be kosher for everyone. If Ashkenazim say that you could wait 3 hours between meat and dairy, if a Sephardi want to follow that, it's good for him as well.
Yeah.
That's where we have unity.
Right, very nice. Okay, so my last question for you is, what would you say to those listening now that say, halacha, it's not for me because, it's really become sort of a backward system. It pushes away women. It's not interested in the LGBT community. It's very hierarchical. What would you say to the folks who kind of feel turned off by the system, at large?
I would say first that probably they keep much more of halacha that they're aware of, because Shabbat and kosher and going to the synagogue, it's only part of the of being Jewish. Being ethical in your business, caring about the environment, caring about the planet, caring about others, being an obedient citizen, a law-abiding citizen, all these things are part of halacha. If you do that, you're already 90% observant Jew. The other things, you should find the way to see how it relates to you.
Right.
And if you think that, and I think also, there's a problem with the way we treat women, we treat the LGBT community. So we have to try to change it from within and not just criticize it.
Beautiful. It drives me crazy. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not observant. I say, tell me about your business practices and the like, as if that being observant is just ritual-minded and not doesn't have the ethical component. So please be sure to follow Rabbi Haim Ovadia and his wonderful teachings. He's one of the most important Jewish thinkers and poskim of our time, who was a very important teacher of mine and many of ours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.